All right, I'm Bradley Thomas, and this is the Art of Change in Your Life Coaching and the Take the Road to Freedom Summit, where we're learning about life purpose. And today, my guest is Tonia Lewis, CEO and founder of the Body Talk World Health Summit, the Body Talk Fast Track Renewal Program, Eden Inc., and is a rising thought leader, success and holistic transformational and empowerment expert. That's a mouthful. Welcome, Tonia. How are you?
Thank you. Welcome yourself, Bradley. I was looking forward to our time together. So thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And throughout this whole summit, I'm trying to spread my message that if you find your purpose, it makes everything else in life easier, especially making money, because you become more authentic with yourself, and people love that, and that they want to work with you because you're authentic. So let's kind of jump into your story, and can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your purpose, and how you found that?
Sure. Whew. Now that's just like you said. That's a big, loaded question. And gosh, I don't even know where to begin, but I'll try and break it down as succinctly as possible. So let's see. Let's start with who I am. I think at the essence of who I am is just like everyone that's listening, is that I'm someone who wants to grow and really walk out my purpose with the authenticity that you mentioned. I want to come through here in the world and make an impact. I want to leave a legacy, not just for my children, but for the entire world, and an imprint. In my logistics, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 6, and now a grandmother of 3.
Oh, wow.
Right, right. And I'm a wife, and I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for about 24 years now. And I am a homeschooling mom at the same time. And those are my biggest roles, amidst just being here, wanting to serve my community. I love God. I love His people. I love that we do get to have conversations about purpose, and that we do get to co-create with Him and walk that purpose out. For me, when you ask about my purpose, it's so crazy because I was thinking about it. We have so many conversations about finding your purpose. What's my purpose? And I've watched so many people almost get sidelined with trying to find the purpose, instead of recognizing that purpose really is revealed every day as we just are. And for me, a lot of what I think, if I had to look at where I'm active in purpose and what my purpose here is, has a lot to do with our past. How we came into this world, what happened, who the players were in the story. And so if I look at my purpose, I really think that I am here to bring God's light and His love through to others who are hurting. In regard to healing, I believe that I'm a freedom fighter, that I'm purposed to fight for other people, to obtain that freedom, to obtain their authentic purpose, and to really unravel and dismantle the fear, the rejection, the abandonment issues, all the different things that sometimes keep us misaligned with our true purposes. And I think I'm a creator, a beautifier. I just think, even beauty is a ministry. And sometimes we look at that in such a, in such an insignificant way. But I think that in many ways we're all here to bring beauty, to bring laughter, to bring joy. But I do believe that I'm called to help people heal, reinvent, transform their lives. I'm here to teach. I'm here to share, and I'm really here to give great compassion to wherever people are, so that they can get where they're supposed to be going.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's a lot for all of us, and I could really keep going. And I think that, you have some of those same qualities, just as everyone that's listening has some of those same purposes. And a lot of mine is grafted through pain, through a challenging entrance into this world, coming into the world really at a time when I've done so many years of, the inner work. I kind of sometimes think I'm like a personal development and inner work junkie, because I do. I really I love growing. I love growing with other people. I love connection, which is another thing that I think that I'm purposed to do. I love connecting with people, and I love learning more about them because I learn more about myself. And so a lot of the things that I believe that I'm called to and so many other people are called to, you know, they're all evolving through our entire life story, Bradley, and I know that you get that. And I think that's why so many of us are called to help people, I think, release what's emerging in us in an authentic way, and to bring that forth in great confidence. Because when you've gone through stories like mine, some of mine is just coming into the world and just coming into a turbulent family, coming out of a lot of dysfunction, coming into what was already a really crazy mix of emotions and brokenness and toughness. And so, you know, you grow up in environments that actually sometimes you find yourself becoming a product of your environment. And a lot of that happened for me, just growing up with a lot of challenges, even being biracial. And even as I was growing, when I was coming up, I really didn't think that I had any complexes in regard to, you know, coming into the world and being born into a mixed race, being raised in an Italian family in a predominantly Italian suburb, but at the same time dealing with the racial climate, being the only mixed child in a predominantly Italian and Caucasian school where there was such a major issue with racial tension. And, you know, dealing with that piece, being bullied, being hurt racially, being hurt in my own family, just so many other things that so many other people are going through. And then, you know, bring that forward into life and all the arrested development that takes place when we've been wounded, and working our way through and working to evolve in spite of all these different things that really say you're not enough, something's wrong with you, you have little value here. So a lot of the things that I think that I really can relate to with other people, and why I can stand in the fire with people through their fears or through their issues with confidence, were birthed in some of those hardships. And again, even as that went forward, that was leaving home at 15 and really trying to figure it out then, you know, just being out in the world, trying to make sense of all the pain and the confusion. And at the same time, there was still so much beauty to celebrate. There were so many beautiful things that happened at the same time. It's kind of like those two tracks of the bitter and the sweet that ran in my life at the same time, as, you know, happens with all of us. And just being out alone, working to navigate through that. So I feel like I am an expert at transformation, at healing, at, you know, tapping into the wholeness that we all come in, because I've had years of that journey, and I've also seen it in a lot of the people that I love, and I've been blessed to sit on the other side of watching that happen so many times.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, and what I kind of heard from that is that you went through a lot. And now you're using your story, your authentic story, to help and empower others through similar times or other areas of their life that, you know, resonate with you and resonate with them at the same time. So I guess how can someone listen currently, like what's going on in their life for their purpose, and then also how can they look back into their life and see some of the threads of like the common things that have happened to them, the things that they like doing, and start tying some of those together to really get their personal and own authentic purpose?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the piece about looking back, what's beautiful about that is that when we look at kids, and of course, just as I was just saying, I've raised 6 children. I'm still in the process of raising children. So, you get to see how children have this beautiful connection to what feels good and right for them. They don't sit around and second guess. Like, I was observing my granddaughter recently at a gathering, and I was just thinking about all the women that were at the gathering that brought the insecurities, the labels, all the different things that have somehow emerged in their life. and how because of that there's a way of being for each of them. And sometimes that's not the authentic self. It's just the way that we've learned to be to survive. And then I was watching my granddaughter, and I was just recognizing how she moved around with total confidence. She doesn't think before she says anything. She just says it. She asks for exactly what she wants. She, talked about the things that were really important to her, and she leans right into whatever it is that brings her joy, brings her peace. She asked for help, she asked for support, and I was just observing this and just looking at her, recognizing, like you could tell she senses that she's gold, Bradley. Like, she recognized, like, I am the center here. I'm adored. I'm loved. And I'm covered. You could tell that she saw that she was safe to be exactly who she is. And so in that, you get to recognize what are her gifts, the things that she loves to do. So I think that people that are looking for, who am I and what's my purpose, a lot of it can be, I think it can be uncovered by looking at who we were as children. If you sang when you were young and you loved music, that even if you don't become a composer and you don't begin to, songwrite, that at least is evidence that when you're in tune with music or musical ability, or you're just saturating yourself with that you get to be more connected to the genuine part of yourself. So I think that looking at what you've always loved to do and then checking in with yourself now. I mean, we're all in a growth process, so what's the sweet spot now? And what is it that we do that we don't even have to think about, and we do it great? We're great at it. It's very, very comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. And some of that is connected to our childhood. And then there's the other piece, too, of looking at some of the reasons that we might not be doing some of that and giving that a witness as well. Because if you were shining really bright when you were young and you were doing certain things and someone made a comment or someone made it uncomfortable and in some situations even unsafe for you to be who you authentically are, then it is difficult, it is challenging to be who you are, because our subconscious mind is saying there's danger when we do that. But the truth is we are safe now. And so we can. So the past can show us things about ourselves that may have suppressed our beauty and our purpose, and at the same time it can remind us of the things that we really, really love that may have just gotten snuffed out, and sometimes just from busyness, just from moving through the familiarity of life and no longer acknowledging, dang, I love this thing, I love to do this thing, and doing more of it.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. And you, I don't know, I think we might be in sync here, but I was trying to lead this to the question of what happens when you're now an adult and you feel it's hard to be your authentic self. And the basic question I was getting at is that you do look back at your childhood, and if you can find that moment in time where someone or some event or something happened where it stunted or blocked you from being your authentic self, maybe a mom or dad yelled at you for doing something that they thought was going to hurt you, but you actually weren't. It could block you later, because then there's all that fear around trying to do that again, and that's actually who you are and how you become authentic. And if people don't let that go eventually, and they can talk to coaches like yourself or like me, or other coaches out there that can help get them unblocked. But if they don't go that far, they can at least think back and say, okay, well, where was that moment in my life where something happened that I was being my authentic self, and then I got stunted, Is there any ways that it's easier to identify and then maybe even, unblock if they're not working with a coach specifically?
That's a good question. And there is checking in with yourself. I mean, I believe, like I know you believe, that when we have someone that has some experience and has gotten on the other side of things, it's so much more of a seamless process, obviously. To have someone that can really dissect and become a really good detective with you. Because remember that those traumas, and that's what they were, even though they seem so subtle. Someone yelling at you to quiet your voice, to literally snuff out. And let me say this. Some of the people that did these things, we have to really just send blessings, love, and all of God's light to them, because remember that we do the best that we can and the level of consciousness and the awareness that we have. So even our well-meaning parents that yelled because what? Of their brokenness, of their unconscious way of living, the way that they've learned to survive, the way that they've learned to relate. A lot of us did have those experiences. For me personally, it wasn't just yelling, it was physical beatings. So I've really learned young that it was much better to be quiet. Don't shine too bright. Don't bring too much awareness to yourself too often, because it can be dangerous. So if you keep everything really safe and you try to make everyone feel really good, things will be well. And again, those are survival mechanisms. So we want to always extend the love and the grace to those that may have hurt us, may have shut us down. For some people, it wasn't in their household. It could have been in school. As I said, I had some incidences with even teachers that were supposed to be there loving on the kids. But it could have been a boss later on. It could have been someone in high school. It could have been a friend. It could have been a minister. It happens all around. When people are hurting people hurt people. So when we do find those situations, if we look back, without a coach, without someone that really has the tenderness and then the professional understanding of how to walk someone through that, if you're doing that on your own, I think one of the best ways is really to just check in with ourselves, to really ask yourself, what is it in my life that I recognize could have been traumatic? What is it that I remember about my life that was really hurtful, or that was a real defining moment? And it's amazing what'll come up, because we are designed with the wisdom of God. We're really intuitive. We're really connected. And if we just slow down, I think that's the big piece, is that a lot of times we're rushing so much through life, and we're so encumbered by all of the schedules, all the activities, all the want-tos and the must-dos, and we're not present with ourselves. So if someone's really wanting to make that discovery, it's really just as simple, at least to begin the process, to just sit down and ask yourself, what is it that's happened that was, it was negative, or it was sad. For some people, that's really obvious. It could have been a loss, a death. Whenever we've had losses, there's grief. And losses are also loss of opportunity, loss of acceptance, not just when someone goes, which is, of course, the most sensitive and tender thing when we've had those type of losses. But I'm talking about even the losses of self, where, like what you and I are discussing, where you slip away to survive. So some of that is even just checking back in to say, who do I really inside feel that I am? And where could that have been lost? I always believe that God is faithful when we ask to deliver those truths to us. And it may take some layers. It's just like an onion, we have to unpeel. But I think that's a good place to begin. It's just slowing down and nourishing yourself with really high quality, high vibrational food, meaning whole food, really giving yourself that nourishment. Doing the things that I think just kind of light you up, putting the smells around you, getting yourself in an atmosphere where you feel really safe and you feel very nurtured. That's a good way to catapult reconnecting with yourself, if that makes sense. But I am a firm believer that having someone else, I just feel like we really kind of hinder ourselves until we have that support to do that healing. Because people, all of us, we have the blind spots, and then we have those things also that when the resistance comes up to know those truths, it's really a blessing to have someone there that can support what's happening and really help the emotion to flow through, so we can get to the other side of it and get to being who we are, to who we're called to be here.
Yeah, I think everything you said is really powerful, and I really encourage people to take some time to think about, write down. It's not like it's going to happen all at once.
Right.
Write down, some of your past experiences, as a child that you just absolutely love to do, and just let those kind of foster and just write them down over time. And if it's something that you really feel stunted about, or was a really traumatic event, you talk to a coach or go talk to a therapist and see if you can start to resolve that. If it's not such traumatic and maybe it's just something a little bit lighter, maybe you might be able to uncover it yourself.
That's
so
right.
so yeah, I just want to encourage people to keep doing that, because if you don't stop asking yourself, then you're letting that authentic part of yourself, kind of die. And the easiest way to do everything in your life is just to be yourself.
That's right.
And if you think about this for a second, it's like, if I could just get paid to be myself, how awesome is that? Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to push my message, is that if you are your authentic self, you can, just be yourself and make money. So there's systems and stuff that you have to do along the way.
Yeah.
But my calling now is to help and empower people, and I want to be somewhere in between Tony Robbins and Jim Carrey. And
Right.
I don't know how it's going to happen. I'm not sure how I'm going to have to get them two in the same room to, to adopt me. But we'll see what happens.
That's right. That's right. Anything's possible there.
Yeah. So speaking, of business, so you found your purpose of helping people and wanting to empower them. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it didn't happen overnight that you're just like, oh, I'm just going to do this, and this is exactly, I'm going to build a business, and I'm going to help people do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be great. So, how did you turn your purpose and the story behind that into a business?
Yeah, well, for me, you're absolutely right. Nothing happens overnight. I think we're constantly reinventing and reinventing, and I think as we take one step, the next step unfolds. So I actually, in regard to business, the last time that I actually worked somewhere was when I was 18. So I'm 45 now. I worked my last job, and one of the things that I experienced was just what I felt was kind of a bondage to not be able. I had my first daughter then, and I just remember when she was sick once and how they scrutinized me about needing to call home and check on her, and that for me, that didn't feel good, and it was absolutely outside of my value system, because I was a new mom who really wanted to be present. And so, it's really crazy, Bradley, because I think that I stumbled into entrepreneurialism like almost on default. Like so many other things were going down in my life where I was like, I've got to be my own boss here. And I started off, this is really crazy, I started off doing nails because I was going to a nail lady that was charging me so much that I was just looking at, good Lord, like every time I go here, I'm laying out so much money, and I probably need to figure out how to stop breaking these nails and how to keep these nails intact without having to see her all the time. Long story short, I buy this nail kit, and I start doing my nails, and I'm really good at it. And everyone's complimenting my nails, and they're just going on, and I'm like, I can do this from home. And so I started doing a couple friends' nails. And then here's the thing, we were just talking about the beauty of really knowing ourselves. A lot of times we're thinking that everyone else is amazing, that everyone else is ultra talented, and we don't see what's lurking inside of us. We just don't see that compressed potential. And the whole time I was admiring this other woman because she could just paint the fire out of nails. Like, I'd look at her designs and I'd be like, gosh, look at how well she can paint. Well, your girl over here just decided I'd get a little tiny paintbrush, and actually made my first paintbrush, and I just decided to fiddle with it. Well, before you knew it, I had these gorgeous designs that I was hand painting, and I was painting up half the city, starting in my house, which eventually led to me starting a nail business. That evolved from being in the midst of salon life, which went back to an original thing that I said around 16. I said, I'm going to open up my own salon. Well, eventually, in my 20s, I'm always in salons. And then, in my 30s, I've got my first salon, and then that's into a boutique. All these things that were really a part of everything I loved. I've always loved fashion. I've always loved beauty, creation, but I didn't see myself as a creator. So the now piece really was a lesson for me to recognize that the same skills and qualities that I saw in other people were really a mirror to some of the same stuff that I possessed. And of course, you know, doing some of the inner work and submersing myself with other women that were doing the same thing helped me to realize that, because that's that piece that we're talking about, where sometimes we're not really in our authenticity and we're not really aligned with our value system because we're fearful. You know, subconsciously there's just programs that are running. And when we can get those programs, you know, we can kind of get the virus out and get the new program that supports us being us running, it's amazing what we'll discover about ourselves, what we come to learn about the world. And I think once I was in that stage, I really just began to create whatever I felt was pregnant in me. And I know what it is to be pregnant, you know, being a mom of 6 and being pregnant all these different times. But I'm talking about, I started to pay attention to these unctions. I started to pay attention to inspired idea. And even right now, I almost feel like I should be selling like business ideas, because I have more than what I can physically do. Like, I come up with ideas all the time, and I started honoring that God was giving me these downloads and these ideas. And just as you mentioned in the beginning of our talk, that there is everything that's in us. These gifts can make a way for us. And the other piece of that is that unless we give them, the world will never have them. And I think that that's a major, major call to start recognizing that we don't just like certain things because we like them. We don't just know how to do certain things because we do them. Every place that we've worked, every place, you know, that you're currently working, every space that you've ever held in life has yielded a gift. We have skills from that. All of those skills and all of those gifts are transferable. They're able to come into every line of work or any business that we want to birth. And I think I've just learned to honor the ideas and not see them as, you know, just this little flippant thing, but to say, what's this name that I keep meditating on? Like, this happens to be this. And I've realized over the years that they've all had meaning. So a lot of you that are listening, you know, that's the piece. Some of this stuff that you're sitting on, some of these ideas or these unctions that you're having, you know, don't discount them. They are what's trying to emerge through you and for you. Just as you said, Bradley, that, you know, money is energy. And it is an energy that when it's released, it releases life's possibilities. So the health that we want, the relationships we want, the impact we want to make, all these things are connected to that energy. So God has designed it so that we can use our natural us. That's the beautiful piece. We don't have to try to figure it out if we're just being us. It's only difficult in life when we're not being us. You know, life gets hard and it gives us feedback when we're misaligned with our true selves. It's really, it's so much easier, and I know you get this, when we're just doing what we're supposed to. Because like everyone that's listening, I've myself hit out in small, safe lives. You know, I stayed in my salon longer than what I think was where I was really supposed to be, so that I didn't have to move out of my comfort zone into the next phase. But in every phase, we're having to really ask ourselves, is this it? And I think when we honor that piece of ourselves that even we're afraid to go forward to, we'll never have regrets. And even when it fumbles, even when we so-called fail, there is no real failure, because we're always growing, we're always learning, we're always evolving through everything that we're encountering. So it's just an amazing process of really allowing, you know, just as I said earlier, that's why we got to slow down, so we can hear, so we can connect. The vision, you know, the hearing, the intuition, it's all sensitized when we're first deciding that we're willing to be open to being us, to healing those parts of ourselves that keep us from being us, and to honor every inspired idea that comes, and to allow the people to come into our lives to support us in becoming that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And one of the things I kind of caught on there that caught my attention was, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and if people are watching this, they're most likely, you know, thinking they either know they are an entrepreneur, or they're thinking about, you know, starting their own business. And a commonality between entrepreneurs is that they always have new ideas. Something's always coming up, you know, and it's really important, I think, for each entrepreneur to know that they can't jump at every opportunity. They have to pick, you know, one opportunity. They don't have to stay with it their whole life, but they should at least pick that and go towards that goal until they finish it, and then go on to the next shiny object or whatever else that they want to work on. Is there any, you know, advice that you could pass on about, you know, how to stay focused whenever you're first starting something, you know, that inspires you to be yourself and you know, run this business that you love?
Absolutely. And that is really amazing wisdom that you're providing right now, Bradley, because most of us, like you said, we're never short on ideas, but the multi-passionate part of us can really be of disservice to us, because like you said, we tend to jump from thing to thing. And some of that is about our comfort zone, that whenever we start to feel resistance, we're like, oh, you know what, there's a new idea, I should do that because I really know this will come easier. And everything that we want is outside of our comfort zone. So it is uncomfortable sometimes to stay with one idea and one concept. But what I do know is that energy, when you're all in the mix of trying to do three things, what I've learned about myself, you know, and this is a trip, because I'm just thinking back to even when I had my last salon and boutique before I came all the way into coaching. I was doing coaching then, had the salon and boutique, was homeschooling 6 kids. All 6 of my children were smaller then, and they were all home. And I was homeschooling them. I was serving in church. I was doing all these things. I was being a wife. I was doing all these things. And so my energy was very dispersed. So in some things, I did a lot of good. And I was in that place of excellence. In other areas, I think I struggled. It was almost like this triage life where you're like, you know, you're nurturing this thing on one day, you're nurturing this on another, based on the need. But the deal is, if we've got our eyes and we've got our minds on too many things, our energy is totally dispersed. When we focus, and only when we focus, do we literally create almost like a stake in the ground for all of our energy to circulate around. And that's when the magic happens. That's when we're really, I think, you know, one thing that I always think about, and I've said it for years, is that nothing becomes dynamic until it's given focus. So whether that's our health, our business, you know, whatever it is, and an idea, as we're talking about here, it does not become dynamic until we focus on it. So one of the ways that I think we can stay focused is you almost have to first be very clear about what you're going to focus on. So once we know exactly what it is that we're focusing on, then we filter everything in our lives around that. So the commitment has to be that I will focus on this for this amount of time. Whether that's this year, I'm giving this one idea all of my attention, or these next 6 months, or whatever it is. And sometimes there's the things within that big thing that we have to focus on. But while we're decided, first thing is to decide that we're going to focus on it. The next thing is our commitment. If we're not committed to focusing, then we can't get the expansion that we're looking for. So when you commit to that time, and when you fall off the wagon, recommit. But the piece of filtering everything, you can start to ask yourself when other things come up, does this thing, you know, this opportunity, this travel venture, this whatever it is, or this next piece, does this thing, does that fit in with how I said I was going to focus and for the amount of time that I said I was going to focus? And I think that, again, you know, we don't want to be robotic, and we want to make space for the allowing, right, to allow things to unfold. So neither one of us, we're not talking about not being flexible, because I think that we all have to be flexible, and we have to allow the dynamic process to take place by watching what comes into play and being willing to watch that kind of shape up differently and transform differently. But I think you made a really good point that if we've just got our hands in too many things, we really just, we do all of them okay, and we might even do really good at some of them, but that baby never grows. You know, if you think about a newborn, it needs a lot of attention, and then it grows into a toddler, and then it continues to grow, and all the while it needs attention and nurturing. So if you come to a place and you're like, oh, my idea and my focus is 7 years old, 7-year-old can stay on its own. I'm going to now have this new baby and go over here and only give this attention, or I'll give that a little. Someone somewhere is missing the quality that is needed. And I just think it really is about commitment and filtering everything through what we say we're committed to.
Yeah, I definitely think it is, and commitment is. I had a story this week, so I'm training for my half marathon, and I leave tomorrow for San Diego.
Awesome.
And I think a lot of people, if they can be conscious and maybe write this down, when you're going for a goal and you set it on a scale of 1 to 100. Around the 80 to 90% mark is when it's going to get the darkest before the light, and that's when you're going to want to quit. That's when you're it might actually be a little easier because you're wrapping things up, but you start to let go of the control, or you start to let go of like, I don't have to be as good as what I was in the first beginning because I'm almost done,
Right.
Or you're climbing the mountain, you're almost there, and you're like, I can see pretty far down the hill, like I'm close enough, but your goal was to go to the top. And so I was running, and I'm just a few days out, and I know I can do the 13.1 on Sunday, but the point is that I kind of wanted to not do the rest of the training schedule. I'm like, I'm there, I'm gonna be ready, like I don't feel like doing it today, But then I caught myself because I've been meditating and trying to be a lot more self-aware, and I'm like, I have to go do this. Just shut up, brain. Just shut up. I have a negative Nancy in my head. I think a lot of people have a downer Don, or I guess I got a downer Don in my head.
All of us.
Not a negative Nancy. But you get the point. Is that you have those negative thoughts that want to make you quit because you think you're almost there, but it just follow through, and it will be so much better on the other side, because then you've mastered that skill and you've accomplished that goal, and you can say you're doing it. And it's the same way with the book that I'm writing right now, is that I'm in that last final stretch of like, okay, it's written, it's edited, but now I got to go get a cover. Now I got to go do this. Now I got to do that. And yeah, I don't want to do some of that stuff because I'm spent on it. I'm done.
Yeah.
But I have to finish the project, I have to get it done, and I have to get it out, and all that stuff. So, and I just want to remind people, like in that last 10%, 10 to 20%, you're going to want to quit and just recommit during that time, so you know that you're going to finish. So, yeah, we're kind of coming to the tail end here. Is there anything else, business-wise, when people are starting a business, that you can, maybe a big failure you had, or something that you can share that people could learn from?
Whew. Well, I've had my share, that's for sure. I mean, we've all had things that did not go the way that we saw them going. We had a vision for what they'd look like, and they went totally different. But what I can say is that we always get to extract something fabulous from that. Those jewels and those nuggets that we got from the challenging scenario that we got from where things fell apart often are the very things that set us up for our best successes, as long as we remain consistent. Even that was such a great point that you made, even in regard to when we're doing something and how we just start to weary toward the end. But that's like that even just in our life, a commitment to be an entrepreneur. There are so many different times that we have to look at why we're doing what we're doing. And that always helps me to recommit when I'm really, really solid on why it is that I am doing what I'm doing in the first place. And I know that we talk about that a lot, Bradley. We hear it all the time, like, what's your big why? But you really, I think, have to look at sometimes. I ask myself a question, and it's about everything, even outside of business. And it's just like, what would my 85-year-old self feel about this? So in all the things that we gather from the places that things haven't worked out, the failures, the disappointments, the losses, those are all feedback. They all have provided some great feedback. Some things were they were the fruit of where we needed to grow and where we needed to mature. We needed to gather more wisdom. We needed to, really upgrade and up-level ourselves, get our inner game right so that we had the manifestation in the outer realm. And I think if we start to embrace those pieces, total acceptance for everything that's happened before today. And I love what you said even about the meditation, because that is a practice for me too. My daily beginnings, one is, to me, the morning is so important. So I really sacredly protect my morning as much as I can. And I love to begin the day with prayer, and I love to follow with meditation and intention for, what exactly I want the day to go like. And that being still and being quiet within yourself, to me, is one of the major things that helps us not to repeat failures, or helps us not to repeat the habits and the behaviors that aren't serving us, and just to have more emotional intelligence, to know ourselves better, be encouraged that everything has purpose. And it does, I think, allow us the fortitude to accept all parts of ourselves. It's the balance in our life. The parts of ourselves that we'd like to see less of are actually in balance with the parts of ourselves that shine and are radiant in our light. And it balances who we are, but we do have to find acceptance for all of it. So that's a big piece, I think, in going forward, is just find acceptance for what hasn't worked out, what did happen in your childhood, the traumas, the crises, the tough days, and then blend those with the beauty. There's always beauty. Blend those together. And sometimes you just got to have a good sense of humor, too. Be able to laugh at some of the crazy stuff that we do, that we've said, that we've created, that we've sabotaged. If you'll just get okay with that. And I think the piece, too, of letting go of being perfect, that is a major. Because that's sometimes where we get ensnared with the things of the past, is that we're trying to perfect what happened. And the deal is, that's already perfect. It was meant to go like that. God could have made it so it was 100% different. But those imperfections are a part of our authenticity, which is what you and I have been talking about today. So embracing all of that, I think it just helps us to go forth a little lighter. Traveling lighter always gets us where we want to go in that space. It's just too much to be encumbered by stuff that's not real. So those are some of the things that I think about when, I'm like, this thing's still coming up. Like you said, we've all got the inner critic, and we've all got the reminders. We could be literally like just bound down in regret and the shoulda, woulda, couldas, but that doesn't serve us. It's only what we do right now. The point of power is in the present. The past is gone, and the future is open. So we get to create right from this piece. So those are some of the things that I think about for my own, like, hated to lose that, hated that went that way. And I think what's beautiful is we can apply it to everything, not just business, but relationships that have gone sour, even things that have happened with our child rearing, in any aspect of life, financial stuff, health stuff, because blame doesn't serve us. Shame and regret and blame and fear, those are all very low vibrations, and they keep us stuck and they keep us stalled. So enlisting the support, as you were mentioning earlier, to move through those things, if that is a struggle, is really important, because everyone deserves to seize happiness. I think that's the piece that we sometimes don't talk about, is that we have a birthright, and our birthright is wealth, it is good health, it is happiness, it is joy, and it's also that we get to have some desires. We get to have desires, and that we get to have pleasures, and there's nothing wrong with any of that.
All right, more chocolate.
That's right. Dark chocolate, organic dark chocolate.
Yeah, organic dark chocolate, less sugar. That's a whole other story. Talking about health and wellness, and how you can incorporate living and breathing, eating healthier whole foods. It's made a huge difference for me. Since I haven't been sick in about a little over 2 years or something like that. Nothing really, besides like a little ISIT, but that was just a little bit, nothing major. So yeah, so as we're kind of wrapping up, why don't you tell people, how they can get hooked up with you and the services you offer in case they're interested?
Sure. I believe right at the bottom of the screen, you should be
Yep.
able to see my website, which right now is just a landing page, because just like some of you, I am transitioning and really moving into this next phase of my life. For a while, as you mentioned earlier, Bradley, I was just doing a lot of holistic coaching because I had such a major transformation and lost like 6 clothing sizes really fast and started helping people cleanse their bodies and release toxicity. And I stayed there for a good while because it felt very, very natural. And I do believe, as you mentioned, like when we have greater health, we think better, we focus better, we create from a different space. So health is, to me, one of the pillars that we do have to give great energy to. But I recognize that I'm really loving even talking with people about their money. I've helped so many people develop their entrepreneurial vision and really balance their lives so that they can walk that out in greater ease without compromising their self-care, their family values, just the other pieces of their life that they value, and without compromising fun, without compromising, the other piece that it is so important to be able to have flex time and to have enjoyment while you're building a great business. So right now, if you go there and you do want to have a conversation, I'd love to, about any type of just a PowerPoint convo on what it is that you think might be holding you back and what it is that you'd really want. I love to help people create from a place of desire, to get rid of the fear and create from desire, because there's a lot of strength and there's a lot of energy behind that supports the transformation. So your listeners can go right to ToniaLewis.com. And there's a couple free audios there. One is on weight loss. So anyone that's listening that wants to understand how I do it, how I've done it, and how I've helped a lot of people, that's there. And so you have a great audio on getting in that Whole Foods place and getting detox and all that. But there's also another audio, Bradley, that deals with really reclaiming control and just getting back in flow, where you get the downloads to know how to move forward. And thirdly, there is a link that if you click that, it will email me directly. And all you need to do is just click that link and send me an email and let me know that you want to have a conversation and get some strategy on what's next for you. And I'd love to do it.
Awesome. Well, I encourage people to check it out. And if you feel some of your message resonate with you, go check Tonia out, and she'll be love to help you. Any final words of advice before we sign off here?
Yeah. It would be that I really do want all of you that are listening to remember that life looks really different when you recognize that God wants you to succeed. Like, there's something about knowing that, and there's something about recognizing that everything that you're called to do, everything that you're called to create, only counterfeits come from fear. So we won't bring anything that's real if we're in fear. Everything that's real, that will have impact, that will draw in every aspect of what we're deserving to have, will come through faith. And when you really start to recognize that God, the angels, the entire world will literally reorganize when you say yes. That there's so many possibilities. The possibilities are limitless. But I just want to encourage everyone listening to move into the next thing and trust yourself. Get the support that you need. I really do feel like everything that's waiting on the other side takes place faster and easier when you have support. But just remember that God wants you to succeed. He is waiting for everything that He's placed in you to come forth and to make, this grand stand of an imprint. Even just in child rearing, there's purpose in everything. So just start to love yourself, become your own best friend. Don't wait for anyone to give that to you. And today, take 100% responsibility for your life and co-create with Him and let it flow. Bring it on. We're waiting. We won't have it if you won't bring it.
Yeah, I like it, and I heard something today that resonated. I need to say it, is that if you start talking about your fears to someone, that starts to create space, and you're starting to shed light on fear. And whenever you shed light on something that's dark, it starts to dissipate. So, I just encourage people to just go out and do that. So talk about your fears. So, all right. Well, thanks, Tonia, very much for being here today. I really appreciate it, and you have a great day.
Oh, thank you, Bradley. I'm so honored that I had this time with you. It was great fun. So thank you so much.
Likewise. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.